I'm Robin Miller-Brecker.
And I'm Karen Lenzer. Welcome to Seeking Center, the podcast.
Join us each week as we have the conversations and weed through the spiritual and holistic clutter for you. We'll boil it down to what you need to know now.
We're all about total wellness, which to us means building a healthy life on a physical, mental, and spiritual level. We'll talk to the trailblazers who will introduce you to the practices, products, and experiences that may be just what you need to hear about to transform your life.
If you're listening to this, it's no accident. Think of this as your seeking center and your place to seek your center. And for even more mega inspo, sign up for Seeking Center, the newsletter at seekingcenter.app. Oh, this is juicy. You know, when we have our dear friend, energy medicine practitioner, intuitive, and Reiki Master, Elizabeth Furest, back on the podcast, the conversation is going to be good. If you're curious about the existence of portals between spiritual realms and how people travel between them, or why spirit may be tied to specific land and how to work with them, we'll be discussing. It's these topics and more that we know we can't get enough of. Interested? Then this is the episode for you. We'll be starting there and then we'll see where it goes. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, Robin. Hi, Karen.
Oh, so excited about this one.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me back. It's so great to reconnect with you both.
We were catching up a few weeks ago and we started having these conversations and we said, you know what, we need to just actually dedicate some time and record them because we know if we're interested, other people will be interested too. And you have such a way of helping us understand what we can't see. So thank you, Elizabeth, in advance. And let's just dive in.
And for those who might be listening and thinking, what the heck are they talking about?
Yes.
Let's start at the beginning. So what is a portal?
That's a really great question, Karen. And I think it's what most people would think of immediately. It's an access point to another realm. And so I know that sounds like Wizard of Oz. It sounds like Narnia, even Alice in Wonderland, right? Didn't she go through the portal to get to Wonderland? There are these different energetic realms and they exist all around us. And there's a multitude of energetic fields and planes. And so anyone who's even ever had a dream has accessed a portal. The dream state in and of itself is a portal.
Oh, that's a great analogy. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, access to information that exists on another plane outside of what you're experiencing in the physical form.
So when we're talking about dream state, even before we started recording today, we were talking about Sedona and there's portals in Sedona. I assume there's really portals everywhere.
Yeah, and that's exactly. So there's places on the earthly plane that, like you were saying, Sedona, that have really potent energy fields, so vortices, and where energies will collect differently or be stored differently or store certain types of information. And that's why geographically, certain places like Sedona will feel different than Mount Shasta, for example. There's different energy fields throughout the earth. It's gridded differently, and those all do have access to different information. And so another example of a portal is even just daydreaming. If you can create a space, if you've ever left your physical form and created a space in your imagination, or even sometimes reading a book where part of you is so in that story, I would argue that you are accessing a different timeline or a different energetic space without physically having to move. Harry Potter is another fabulous example of that. For a lot of us, we could argue that Hogwarts is just as real as anything else on the earthly plane because it's so rich in magic and things that we know exist in different places, even if we're not experiencing them in the physical realm.
So in your definition, then, a portal, though, is almost like a passageway to another time, space, reality. How do you make that something tangible that people can understand?
I think to add to that, so much of why we're talking about this today came from, I was sharing a story about my daughter who would dream and she would actually also create these worlds prior to going to sleep that she would then focus on and meditate on going into. So she would create these other realities. And that was really what we started talking about because sometimes that is actually a little dangerous. And I don't use that word lightly because if you don't know how to navigate through different worlds, then you could actually be attracting energy you don't want to your system. So to add to Karen's question.
And that makes it more tangible, I think, for people to understand, like even just from a dream perspective, how you can end up going through or into another realm.
Yeah. And I think the best example is a dream state or a daydreaming state. Like Robin, you were saying with your daughter, she was able to create and then access these other places we know about in sci-fi and fiction and all of these things, but they're actually not fictional. They are the ability to move into a different energetic plane and connect with what's existing in that plane. So for example, someone in a dream state, they may be able to have a visitation or communicate with someone who is either crossed into the spirit realm or even someone, for example, that's in another country. Have you ever woken up and had the same dream as someone in the same room as you, or had the same dream as someone living in a different place? If you both access that space and you're like, oh, I saw you in my dream last night, there is something about both of your astral bodies, which is the part of you that when you're still physically here on earth is able to travel through these portals. It's that energetic part of your body that is leaving, whether it's in a meditative state or in a dream state, that is able to get information, meet up with someone who isn't physically present with you, meet up with a spirit that's in another realm. That is being able to access a portal. Sometimes, and this will happen with like night terrors or nightmares, that could be an example of accessing a portal that wasn't necessarily safe for you, or being too open when you travel into these realms and it collects negative information or information that you weren't ready to receive, or maybe even information that just wasn't meant for you.
And talking about astral bodies and then traveling, I love that you define that. And then would you call that then astral traveling?
Yeah, so I would call that astral traveling. So our energetic body, we have our physical human form, flesh and bones, and then there's all these different energetic layers. For example, we have an emotional layer, we have a mental layer, and it goes out around our body. The astral body is attached to the third chakra, which is the power center of the body in the upper diaphragm where the rib cage comes together. And in that power center, there is a connection with a silver cord that attaches to the astral body. And so basically the astral body is the part of the energy body that is able to safely leave and travel and access other realms, while the physical body is either asleep or in a meditative state or a relaxed state. So a perfect example is daydreaming, or going into, like you were saying, your daughter is creating these imaginary spaces. She is creating portals that she can access, or is already aware and accessing portals that are there, and she's downloading the information. And that's why some of the best examples, like when it sounds cuckoo, that's why we can go back to sci-fi and fiction and all of these other things where these spaces, they're just on the other side of our imagination and can be just as much as real. The sea has portals, right? Outer space has portals. There's all these different access points to various forms of information and life even.
So are there specific portals that we should know about? Are there specific portals that we can safely explore in a meditative state? So for somebody who's not familiar, like above and beyond sleep or meditation, what are some examples of other portals and other realms that are there?
People work differently in what they feel they can safely access. Some people feel that they can access information, let's say going for a hike and being out in nature. You might feel like you're in this portal of the spirit of the trees or Mother Nature, or feel like you can communicate with animals in that space. That can technically, without shifting time, you can feel like you are being held in this energetic container that could give you maybe more wisdom than if you were just not engaged in going on that hike or sitting with a tree, etc. Another good example is when someone, maybe they work with archangels or they work with the angelic realm. When they connect into those angels or that guidance team, they are opening a portal and having communication and relationship with that angelic realm. I think it's an infinite amount of portals. It's just what people are interested in and what feels safe for them to access. Past lives can be a portal, right? If you want to access information about your family, there's a portal, an informational archive that can take you back in time.
And we've experienced it. And it's interesting to think about it with that perspective, that it is actually a portal. And we've heard that there are maps within certain worlds. Have you heard that as well? And do you believe that to be true?
Oh, I think that there's such an infinite amount of information out there that we just have no idea. Like we could argue too, just for the journey of our own human experience, is there a map that is a predestined map to what our soul is meant to be doing? Are we writing the map as we go along? Is the map something we can modify? I think it's all possible. I don't think there's one concrete answer. I think that there's maps and innate wisdom happening at all times to make different pathways and connectivity. But I think the most important part is if one is going to learn to astral travel or to access different realms, to be able to still be tethered to the physical form and know that the sovereignty and the existence is, even though you can access those places, it's still most important to be able to come back down into the physical form. So someone, for example, who does trance channeling, they are leaving their body. I'm not sure necessarily if it's an assigned portal they're going to, or they might just be going to the portal to access certain information that involves a person or a spirit or a certain time. But after they access the information, they come back into themselves and they close out that space. So they're not coexisting with those portals. And it's always just important, like same thing with a dream. We don't want to be stuck in a dream state forever. You want to be able to come back in and wake up and integrate it. And so the most important part, even though portals are super exciting, is how to travel safely.
Yeah, I was literally just thinking that as you were talking and looping it back to Bella again. Is there a way to protect yourself as you are intending to have these experiences? Is there a way to really ground yourself safely before you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's just so fundamental, because I would imagine that a lot of people listening to this podcast are either highly sensitive people or people who already know how to astral travel and lucid dream, or really want to learn how to astral travel and lucid dream. And it's really exciting to be able to access these places, but you don't want to get stuck there either, or dissociate, right? In classic psychology, that would be someone who's dissociated if they're permanently living somewhere other than reality. And so the energetic tool is to hold the intention of being fully present in your body. So holding the intention that all of your spirit is present in the moment, and that you are connected to the earth, and that you are connected in present time. And then I always refresh my auric field. So the energy fields around me, the energetic bubble. I always ask that my bubble is grounded and safe and secure, and that it's going to hold my body in the physical plane. So I'm tethered to the physical plane. And then whether it is a meditative state that I'm going into, or if I'm going to sleep for the night, it would be the same protocol of just being grounded and quieting my systems, quieting my central nervous system, and then resetting that bubble. And then through that third chakra, where the cord is the astral body. And so many people will feel, if they sense into it, that their astral body hangs out a little bit outside of their field. And so if you want your astral body to travel, I do the same energetic setup on that astral body, ground the astral body, also put it in a bubble. So there's not any part of myself that's not protected without that bubble. So I put the astral body in a bubble, and then I hold the intention, whether it's meditative or a dream state, that I'm only accessing realms that are for my highest and best good, and only for things that I am prepared to see or to explore. And we can't always control our dreams. That's what lucid dreaming is the ability to control it while you're in it. We can't always control it, but it's setting this protocol that will allow our dream states to give us just the wisdom that we need in that moment. And then holding the intention that when we're complete there and have everything that we need, we only bring back the wisdom that we need and that's serving us. And I like to envision that the astral body almost gets rinsed off and reset in its bubble before it fully comes back into my body and back in through the third chakra. So like any information that I'm getting is fully cleared, then picking up a bunch of interference or garbage and debris and pulling it back into my body.
That's beautiful.
That is so helpful. I never even thought to ask those things, or how smart. Something you mentioned to us a few weeks ago was this idea of a sacred energetic badge. Is that
Absolutely. It absolutely plays into it. So yeah, what I was explaining the other week too is like in that third chakra, it's a good visual to keep a symbol or a badge. Anyone who's seen the Pixar movie Soul would know what I'm talking about, where they have that little badge, their little earth badge. It's the same thing with astral traveling. In the movie, they go from, I don't know where they are, Soul Land,
yes,
to Earth, but it's like this passport that they need in order to travel. And they can't leave the earthly plane and go back to Soul Land without the earthly badge. And we are sovereign beings, so we can travel around without the badge, but that's not necessarily safe for the spirit. So having a symbol that is placed on the third chakra is a reminder to the astral body and to just the soul in general of, I travel safely through the astral realms. It's like having a passport. So you're already been vetted, you can safely travel and you can go wherever you want, but you've been vetted somehow. And so having that symbol will just badge you into the places and the portals that are meant for you without over intellectualizing it, but that are meant for you. And you can then be assured that you're not going to be accessing places that you aren't meant to be accessing because you wouldn't fit into those places. So it's just an extra layer of protection.
Elizabeth, are there different levels of portals, destinations that, for lack of a better word, are advanced. In other words, I'm thinking about shamans and like some of those, the Native American practices of really being able to, almost as a rite of passage, access those realms. So like, are there tiers of what's safe for someone to access versus to be more of a soul trained teacher or practitioner to be able to really venture into those places?
That's a really good question. If we're holding the intention of our own healing, I don't think spirit gives people spaces that they're not necessarily meant to go into. I don't necessarily know if there's a hierarchy of those portals. I just think they're all hold energetic differences. If I, in a dream state, was accessing a past life, I don't know if that would be more important than someone doing shamanic work, accessing the wisdom of bear wisdom, like an animal wisdom. I don't think those portals have a hierarchy. I just think they're entirely different. And I would imagine that as someone becomes more involved in their spiritual practice and can handle more access or more information or is clearer on what they're curious about, that more portals would become available.
So fascinating. We talk a lot about jumping timelines, being able to really visualize into the future, the destination or the place that we want to end up being, almost as an affirmation for ourselves. Is that idea of time jumping and timelines the same idea as a portal?
Yeah, it's absolutely very similar. When we time travel, like in a dream state, if I were to access a past life, let's say, either in meditation or a dream state, I am technically going through an energetic portal of time that is bringing me back to wherever that was in my timeline, but my physical body isn't manipulating time. My body's still present, but that portal is definitely a shift in the space-time continuum. So when we astral travel, I would say that all space and time are playing out at the same time there. So past, present, and future are all in a convergence in a lot of portals. So when you think out to the future, if there's something that you're really trying to bring into manifestation and you are working to speed that up, the portal may be without spiritually bypassing, but it might say, okay, what lessons have I already learned that I can make this happen faster? So if tests come my way, or like I know what my choices are that could be denser, or I know what choices could be lighter in that alignment to bring in that thing faster, you are creating a portal to speed it up. We create our own portals often.
And can you also, for those listening who may not understand this idea of the fact that time outside of being human isn't linear?
Exactly. Yeah. Time outside of being human is not linear. So in the Akashic records or in the records of life, it is a constantly moving, breathing, living document, essentially. So it's where everything across all space and time has been stored. So whatever we do in the present moment does affect our future, but it can also heal the past. And so when we choose to be totally present and we're in our bodies, regardless of if we travel or not, we are able to use our own sovereignty, but I would like to say even our own essence and our own magic to shift those outcomes, to contribute and write the stories of the Akashic records. And so that absolutely is being able to create your own timeline or create your own portals of, it can be portals of creativity along the way or manifestation. Like if there's something that you want to achieve and you're really working on that, you are creating a pathway into that energetic space.
And so in many ways, from our conversation so far, I would imagine people listening are now understanding that we really are in and out of these portals every single day. Because obviously, I would say most of us dream and most of us daydream throughout the day. And some, even if it's only for 30 seconds, there's something. And you can even be, if you have a memory, right, that's from this lifetime and it's really powerful in your mind for whatever reason during a moment during your day, you're basically time traveling backwards in this lifetime.
Absolutely. And that makes sense. And that's a really good example of how it works the other way too. I'm really glad that you brought that up. So if someone has a memory from this lifetime, let's say it's a traumatic event or it's something that they haven't quite been able to let go of. If they're thinking about that every single day, and we go back to talking about the energy body, their physical mind is thinking about it. So their physiology is aligned with that moment and reliving that moment. So is their mental and emotional field. And then so is that astral body. So that part of you that's connected through the third chakra and that likes to float outside, it could be still stuck in the timeline in that event. And that's why some people aren't able to heal in the present time, because a big chunk of them is lagging behind them. It's stuck behind them in that portal, in that past timeline. And so they can't be fully present in this moment to have the life force or the creativity to create a new portal or to have a different experience or just ground through the moment, because they're still stuck in a snag, basically in the timeline, in a wrinkle. in their human experience.
That just blew my mind, because here I am thinking that we're having this like Harry Potter conversation, but you're bringing it so back to the relevance of our day-to-day lives. And yes, how even we can get caught up in that reliving of that experience and that making us stuck. And that is a portal in its own way. That just blew my mind right there. And that we have the control really to leave it behind and move to something else or not, which is also empowering as well.
Very empowering, and as fast as you want to. So if you have something, a snag in your field, and let's say it was 2 years ago, if you wake up one day and you say, you know what, I'm really done with this, you can leave it behind and pull all of your energy into the present moment as soon as you want to heal. And that's the most incredible thing about the human spirit, is this perseverance and the ability to just be like, you know what, I'm going to slide now way forward in my timeline and be present.
You can feel that. Sometimes you do just wake up and you're like, I need to make a change, or you go on a trip and something about that just changes something within you and you make that decision. You can feel that difference in somebody that you're close to. You can feel that shift. You can feel that change energetically when they make that decision.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's creating a new energetic field. And I like the simplified idea of going on a trip, that in a way it's time travel. If we've ever gone on an airplane and then you land in a different time zone, you technically did time travel. And then you're in a different energetic space. Like we were talking about Sedona, or there's also like Santa Fe has a completely different energy. There's so many magical cities. I can't even get into that. But when we go to these different places, the resonance is different. And that's where there's these portals. And that's why people come back and they're like, oh my gosh, I have a different sense of how I want to live, or I'm going to change this habit about myself. It can sometimes open up a part of us that then we let go of information, and then that portal closes and smooths out across all space and time. We really just have this ability to weave through our experience and what we do with space and time. And the real important part of it is, how much do we collect and hold on to? And then how much are we just willing to let go of, and having that power to decipher. You can go around and create all these different experiences and travel through these different realms, but at the end of the day, what are you going to keep and what just gets filed away? And that's the ability to heal yourself, come in and be whole with it. Yeah.
And I love what you're saying, because you're empowering all of us to know that we can do this on our own. We can make these decisions. And I'd like to point out too, if you are feeling like you don't know that you can do this alone, or you don't know how to identify, is your astral body stuck somewhere? Someone listening can reach out to you or another one of our practitioners that does energy work on a daily basis and get that additional help if they need it.
Absolutely. And I will say too, for the listeners who really want to know how to do it, it doesn't have to be over intellectualized, because one of the most important laws in energy medicine is that energy follows thought. So if you hold the intention that any of your energy that's stuck in another place and time, or in another event, or with other people, that you just collect it all and bring it fully back into yourself. And so for listeners who want to try it right now, you can hold the intention that you have a really beautiful butterfly net and cast it out. And it's just a personal butterfly net. So it just belongs to you and your own energy, but it's in present time, and you can cast it out across all space and time, across all planes, and collect any of your energy that needs to return to you now. So we're not collecting back in memories that don't serve you. We're just attracting in your essence. And your essence is always the most highest healed present version of yourself. It's casting out that net and then pulling your energy fully back into your body. And then I hold the intention that then this grounded new frequency is the new setting in present time. And for many of you, you might just feel there's more of you there, or you might just feel happier because you're not stuck in something that played out, because this moment is more than likely perfect in and of itself. If you're all there for the perfect moment, keep expanding that. And that's being in a wholeness. People who feel very scattered, the reason people say they feel fragmented or scattered, what they're trying to explain is that they lost pieces of their astral body or energy body along the timeline or in different portals, and they didn't know how to get it back. But you can always take a big net and pull it back in.
Or the scatteredness can come from not being present and letting your energy be thinking about something in the past, thinking about something else, versus really being present. And I just wanted to share, I was telling Robin this morning, an example for me that you just highlighted was, I went to this reunion from work yesterday, and it was literally almost a portal back in time 30 years ago when we all worked together. And
a good example.
Yeah. And the feeling that I had forgotten of what it it was like to be loved and unconditionally accepted within that group, and all of the emotions that we shared with each other as we were so young and trying to figure out our careers. But seeing their 30-year in the future faces, we all actually said we were literally a stone's throw from our old office. And we did go back in time together to that 30-year-old that was 28 years old at that point. And did we ever think that in 30 years in the future, we would be in this little restaurant that we all knew in our futures? And it was just magical because we celebrated the memories, but we also celebrated where we are today and that we have still this love and camaraderie for each other. So I woke up today just feeling different because I re-immersed myself in that energy of the past that was so positive. So you can get stuck in the past on things that you're trying to relive and fix, but you can also go back and really relive the wonderful experiences too.
And you said something that's really important, that these places coexist at the same time. You can be present there, but you can also be having these blasts from the past and be in the memory. It's just after you have that experience that you file away what isn't present anymore and you come back in. It's like getting a good book out from the library. You can go into that realm, but when you're done, you file it away and you come back into yourself and keep going. The important point that you made is that you can have a foot in both realms safely. You can have that camaraderie with your friends, have memories from the past, and it all be true. And that's why portals, we know all these different realms can all simultaneously exist. It's all infinite. It's just, where do we choose to put our energy? Where do we want to explore? What places do we want to go? And what relationships do we want to explore in these timelines? And what experience do we want to have to add to our experience here and now? Because we're not just limited to what we're doing in the physical body in the moment. We can access so many places at any time to add to our innate wisdom. So that's a perfect example.
I think so too. And I wanted to ask about sacred geometry and what you think about sacred geometry. And number one, what is sacred geometry? And how does that play a role in our lives, or can it play a role in our lives?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So sacred geometry is, how I would describe it, is like the patterns that we see throughout the universe and all life and all living things. We have geometry within our bodies. In nature, there's sacred geometry. If you cut open like a pomegranate and you look on the inside, or you look at the inside of a piece of fruit, how it's perfectly symmetrical is an example of how sacred geometry is expressing itself. And it doesn't always have to be, some sacred geometry is even chaotic looking, like the stars in the sky constellations are sacred geometry, but it doesn't have to necessarily look like a kaleidoscope. It's playing out in all these different ways. And so like a portal and moving through portals is a form of sacred geometry in a way, because it's how we're able to connect through like a bigger woven together picture, which is how I see sacred geometry from afar, of like why higher level things all play out in cause and effect. And so sacred geometry to me is often a reflection of energetic patterns of cause and effect. Same thing when you look at the layers of the earth, that's absolutely sacred geometry playing out, but it's not linear the same way that I was saying of cutting open a pomegranate. So it just plays out in different forms, but it's very energetic too. Like when we're talking about portals or looking at our energy, let's say we bring the astral body back into the physical form, you might want to look at the sacred geometry then energetically of yourself to say, am I fully and completely back in my body? Or is part of my astral plane hanging out over here? And you look at the geometry of your field and say, okay, is there something else that needs to be balanced here? Is there something that doesn't feel natural to me? Can there be more balancing? And so if I'm working with a client and their energy systems are really smooth, and then all of a sudden it's not, and there's a block, that block is showing me there's something off or tilted or dense in their sacred geometry, because that's not how they would normally look if they were fully healed. And so we can shift using shapes and colors. We can shift sacred geometry by shifting energy.
And I feel like if people have heard that term before and heard about different sites that have been built, let's say, and from our perspectives, like thousands of years ago, and they're so perfect. And it was a time where we didn't have the technology we have today. How do you think that sacred geometry plays out in those cases?
That's an awesome question, because you're right. It's still one of the world's mysteries of the pyramids, for example. Like, how are they built so perfectly in their shapes to be mirrored back into the constellations, or even sundials? Like, sundials blow my mind that there's this technology to know exactly track the sun so you would know what time it is based on shadows. That's a great example of sacred geometry. And to answer your question, I think because everything in life, in nature, like if you look at something under a microscope, if we look at cells, that's all manifesting in these forms that will create harmonious patterns for things to stay alive. And we see that in every aspect of nature. And so there's nothing that doesn't fall into that category. So even back in ancient Egypt, when they're making the pyramids, if they're listening intuitively to their bodies and they're within their own sacred geometry, they're going to be getting messages from wherever they're getting information, whether it's from the stars, whether it's from, any sort of other spiritual guidance. It's coming in through energetic patterning, which is how we understand information anyway. Information is just patterning. And so if they're already living within their sacred geometry, the pyramids are an outward expression of the sacred geometry in which they were living in, which was like the stars, the moon, the land, etc.
Yeah.
And we build sacred geometry. Look how we build cities. We build these grids or these wheels. We build in sacred geometry anyway. We're just more advanced with how we use the tools now in terms of design.
Yeah. And I love that you brought the pyramids up. Karen knows what I'm going to say, I think, which is
Yes.
one of my past life regressions. I really experienced being part of that time and building it. It was Karen and I as men, and we were both building those pyramids with our minds as well as our hands. So I know that because I actually have experienced astral traveling to
That's
that time. And I was having dinner with someone earlier this week, and this idea came up, and they were saying that there's a show right now. I believe it's Ancient Apocalypse, and I haven't gotten to that episode. I am watching that series, and they started talking about the pyramids and sacred geometry. And I said, I know, because I was there. And of course they looked at me like, okay. I said, who's to say what is real? But it felt really real to me. And I know Karen was with me. And so anyway, to your point, it's having the ability to do both, right? To use what you just said was using both your mind as well as the physical. Anyway, it made me think about that.
That's exactly it. Like we've been using, if nature is the perfect example of sacred geometry, how everything is a pattern or uses shapes or repetition to give information or to create harmonious life form or just organize chaos in a way, it's like we are no different. So anything like a contemporary city that we build back to ancient Egypt and everything in between, it's all of just trying to work elementally to find organization. And that's what we do too. We're doing the same thing in our daily lives. If we choose to heal from our past or we're choosing to manifest our future, we're working with shapes, energies, colors to map out from present time what we want those energies to look like in the future.
Yeah. And I was reading a book recently that reiterated how everything in the universe and within ourselves, it comes back down to numbers. And in our humanness right now, can't even understand the depth of math.
It's infinite.
Math.
Yeah.
Infinite. And that makes me think about how we tie that into the sacred geometry and everything else. We just can't, to your point, we can't explain it. Some of it is the mysteries, but it does to me come down to the patterning.
It's energies that we have been governed by for billions and billions of years that are all in their own. If we look at the planets, they're all perfect in and of themselves, but they operate at a different velocity, at different speeds, on different timelines,
Yes.
all in their own sacred geometry on a larger scale, playing out a larger orchestrated sacred geometry. And we are just of that. And so we have to channel, if we want something to happen in life, we have to visualize a clear path forward, not all the roadblocks, right? Like when we have a visual of this is a clean path or like a clear path forward, you can use that as an example of sacred geometry of visualizing that pathway free of obstacles. If your pathway has all these roadblocks and cones in it, clean up your sacred geometry towards it. And it's like, where is that held in the body? What's saying there needs to be roadblocks? Is it your heart? Is it your mind? And then clean it up in the mind or the heart and then clear it visually. So then we're operating with sacred geometry as energetic tools. So if I want to envision a day with ease, that day to me might have white light. That day might have birds. I'm going to bring into me what feels sacred to create and hold that intention. But if I get up and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a rocky day, there might be rocks and boulders in that field. But if I can change it in my mind and shift it in my body, I'm creating a portal or a pathway for that energy to follow what I'm thinking of and what shapes and colors I'm working with in my own body and my own field.
And really, if we look at energy, it looks like sacred geometry as well. If you could visualize what you look like as an energy being, it would all reflect the same kind of, right?
Absolutely. That's absolutely it. And that's how I work with people too. I'm not looking and saying, oh, I see that you have blue eyes necessarily. I'm looking at the shapes and the colors and what their spiritual energy body looks like. I was saying before, if someone's body is really in present time, they might be really vibrant and have lots of colors swirling around. down. But if they just had heartbreak, maybe around their lungs and in their heart, it's going to feel denser. So using the tools of sacred geometry and the ability to manipulate and clear energy, you would move that block out because it's not natural to their blueprint, which is already perfectly sacred. So we move out the stuff that is blocking their sacred geometry or the sacred blueprint.
Oh, this is one we could talk about all day too. So can we loop back a little bit, because we were talking about Sedona earlier. It made us think about this idea of sacred land and spirits being there and inhabiting that sacred land. Can you talk about that? You've had some experience, Elizabeth, helping people when they're looking to build a foundation for their home. How does spirit show itself there? How do you work with spirit to recognize and then ideally at least maybe clear or at least find a way that they can cohabitate together?
Yeah, that's a really great question. As all of us know, as we move through different parts of land, it all holds different frequencies. Going to the beach holds a different frequency than going to the mountains. And because the earth is it's an ancient record keeper of all life that has ever been, there is more energy in spirit than there is in the 3D plane right now. So there have been more spirits that have ever walked the earth than what's on it right now. So we actually live in these energetic records of what was here before we were. The energy that might be, like we were talking about Sedona, if that has been used as sacred land for many years from the same families and the same generations of people, it's going to have energy that has been built that holds maybe records or memories, imprints on that land. That's why sometimes you enter it and you get this like visceral feeling, or you're like, oh my gosh, this is a ritualistic space. Or like sometimes you walk in somewhere and you're like, I feel like I need to be quieter here, because you can feel the sacredness of the land. You feel different sitting by a creek than you do in an amusement park, right? It's that exact same thing. We're responding to the imprints and what has built over time on that land. And so when we talk about working with the spirits of the land, some places, some land, I believe, is more inclined to want people to live there. You can feel when land is very welcoming, but then you look at the cliffs of a seaside, that land does not necessarily want to be built on. It's holding a rigidity of this constant need of change. So it's not going to allow someone to root or ground through a home there. That home won't necessarily be stable. Or people who build on earthquake lines and ley lines, they can often feel that their house isn't completely stable because there's an energetic line that runs through it. And it's the same thing if there's been a collection of certain people over time, ancestrally even, or just in migrational patterns that have concentrated certain places. The spirit there, even if those spirits aren't there in present time, still hold contracts sometimes with the land or with the homes that were originally there. Like sometimes the land and the space can be cleared, but other times it can't be cleared. Sometimes people are like, can you just clear all this land so we can make a new development? The land might clear a little bit, but it's going to ultimately be what it wants to be. So when I explain that to people who are like, can't you just clear this house so it sells faster? I'm like, you can't walk into a graveyard and just ask it to be a candy shop. It's holding a resonance of something, and we have to allow that to be its sacred space and then determine if or how we participate with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think you actually explained to us, for instance, where someone was really asking your help to work with energy that was in a home that they were trying to sell that happened to be on really sacred land. And you could feel the spirits that were there and that didn't want anyone else to move in. And so you explained to them how you had to work with the spirit. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had that happen multiple times actually, and I'll see it happen. Let's say it's even happened for myself actually. Like when I bought my house in Michigan a while ago, there were so many spirits in this house and they were making sure that I was okay to come into the house. I think that they were excited that I was going to be the new owner, but there was a lot of conversations and a lot of checking me out and making sure that I would coexist with them. And if someone's entering, which I actually loved that, and that's like a whole other story. And that was a portal. That house.
We can talk about that, Elizabeth. We have not covered that one because for everyone listening, now Elizabeth lives in California. So we're going to have to hear about your Michigan story another time.
Yeah. And so that was actually a portal that there I could coexist with the spirits, where other examples I've seen, especially in Northern California, along the coastline, it's sacred land. Not only is it protected seashore in some of the places, but it was also home of the Miwoks, which was a Native American tribe. And they, in their belief system, a lot of the land where I am here was either ritualistic land, or they said certain pockets can be built on, but other parts you don't live on. You just go for ritual. ritual, and then you leave because the energy fields are strong. I would imagine in Sedona, people want to visit the vortices, but you don't want to like sleep on it. You go in for the ritual and then you leave. And so what I've seen just in contemporary times with housing situations and new developments and things like that, people want to build on what has been originally a ritualistic land or a vortex, or it can even be, like I was saying, like a ley line. And when we go against what that land wants, the spirits of the land can often get disturbed. And then if we go ahead and build on it anyway, the spirits, for lack of a better word, might try to disrupt or haunt that space or the people involved with it. So a lot of times, especially when people are like, I have this beautiful space, but no one can live in it, they're clashing with these energies. It's coming into an agreement to try to create a new contract that the people, the land itself, the house, and the people in the house can all coexist and find an energy that is just supportive. And anything that's holding back that contract from being cleared needs to be fully released so everyone can coexist at the same time, because everything's always naturally going to be shifting. But what I've seen with that in the past is really having to work with the spirit of the land to see if it can have compassion or set itself at an energetic resonance that even if it didn't want to be built on, that it can be okay with the right person or the right energy for it to be a match, that eventually they can work together over time. It's about forming a respectful relationship. Just if you sell a home that you love and it's a historic home, it's hard if someone's going to bulldoze it and build something new. There needs to be an agreement of what changes are going to take place so the land and the spirit can all feel at ease. And if anyone's able to leave or move out, that's another thing to evaluate at that moment too. Is it time for anyone to let go? Any of the spirits to let go?
One of the really good examples I think of that Robin and I both are aware of is Enchantment in Sedona, because that resort is absolutely exquisite. It's literally built along one of the vortexes there. But there was a very deliberate ceremony that was done before ground broke on that resort being built. And because there was that respect that there were Native American ritual sites there. And so the resort very intentionally created really a blessing on the land and really went into an energetic, I guess, alliance is probably the best way to say it, with those spirits. And you can feel that. You can feel that sense of the agreement that they understand the beauty of that place inspiring so many and having a place where people can sleep and enjoy that view and that experience. So it doesn't feel conflictive with that space. Robin, when you were there.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I was going to bring that up as well. It feels blessed. And because they have that agreement, both with the spirit and then the actual people who are descendants of this tribe, it's so powerful there. Then in addition, you have the vortex that's there.
Yeah. And then using the tool of sacred geometry, when I look at that, I see this harmonious swirling energy. It all works together. It doesn't to me feel like there's any sort of combative energy or things that don't get along. If you ever walk into a place and you're like, this is off,
yes,
that would be an example, like the energies are conflicted or stuck or not cleared. But what you just described, they found all the ways to bring the place and all the planes, the land, the people, the spirit, all into present time and say, we're going to create a harmonious, we're holding that intention in a contemporary form. And that's really beautiful.
Just a quick question that went through my head. I think I know the answer, but what would you say is the difference between a vortex and a portal?
That's a really good question. For me, when I look at them separately, I feel like you can, when I look at how they look different to me, and again, using the tools of sacred geometry, the portal I feel can be moved through. It's an access point to another realm. A vortice to me is contained swirling energy that sort of holds in one place.
That's a really good distinction.
It creates an energetic field, but you're not necessarily traveling through it. It just creates an energetic field.
Yeah, that feels right.
Yeah,
to me,
it does.
I can see how people might get confused thinking that it could potentially be a place that could be a portal. And that's not necessarily not a place. You can go and be present in the vortex and really feel like you can transport yourself
Use
to
it also as a portal would be.
Yes, exactly. But
yeah, because I'm glad you said that, because I think when we started our conversations today, in my mind, in a way, they were overlapping. And so now we really can see the distinction between them. And I'm glad that you defined them in that way.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes a portal, I feel like you move through and come out, where a vortice, I feel like when it's collecting energy, you can gain energy or release to it and interact with it, but you're not moving through it. Yeah. having an energetic exchange with it instead of more of a pathway to travel through.
Yeah, that's such a great point.
It's like the difference between a black hole and what would be like those other cosmic swirls in the sky. Like a black hole, like a wormhole, I would think of going through as a portal, where when you see, what are those beautiful orbs of just, I don't know, spinning galaxies, like that would be more of like a vortex to me, not necessarily a portal.
And the way I've heard Sedona described is that when you go there, because of the vortexes, when whatever intention that you have is magnified. So a vortex is almost a magnification, an energy magnifier of whatever it is that you're intending, versus a portal being a transportive experience that might be another place. Again, you can change your experience through that portal, but I think the vortex itself is much more in the present time.
Absolutely. That's a perfect way to describe it. Yeah.
And talking more about spirit that may be inhabiting a land or a home, if somebody feels that in their home, is there a way for them to clear that on their own?
Yes. So the best tool that I know, especially when you have one, it's starting with the tools that we talked about, are like being grounded and fully in your own body. And then the next step that I would take is grounding the entire energetic space. So just asking that you could do a whole waterfall of just earth energy over the whole space, holding the intention that you're giving your whole house and all the land just a big waterfall, and ask that it be cleansed in present time. And then asking the inquiry of, or even not even the inquiry, but holding the intention that you mean no harm to anything that is there. But if there's anything that is able to be released, whether it's a spirit, an energy form, an imprint, a pattern, fragments, and you can create a pillar of white light outside of the space that you're working on. So, it could be a few yards outside of the house or across the street, and you create a portal of white light and hold the intention that, not a portal, a pillar of white light, and holding the intention that pillar of white light holds all divinity of healing information. So let's say you get a spirit that just walked through your house and then gets stuck, or lived in that house, but they had passed 20 years ago and they sometimes don't know where to go. If they are ready to clear, you talk to them like you would a friend or a loved one, and you just say, if you are ready to leave, this pillar of white light has everything that you're looking for. And you ask that spirit or those energies, and you can use the same thing like the butterfly net, and collect it all and put it into the pillar of white light. And then when it feels complete, you just allow that pillar of white light to go back to the earth or move it up to the sky, and then refresh a protective bubble around the house or around the physical space. And you can do that often, because we get energies all the time in our spaces that come through daily or weekly. Things can walk through and get stuck. And you could have a conversation with someone and the conversation fragments get caught in the house. Or people who have charged conversations in their kitchens hold all the energy.
Oh my goodness. I know where I need to clear.
Thought about something like that. Like, you think about energy, you think about spirit, but you don't think about conversation. That is a really good one. Because Robin and I were having a conversation about that this morning, about how you feel comfortable in some people's homes and how you don't feel comfortable in others, because you can definitely sense that energy of those conversations are still there. They're still present and caught up in that present state. So that's a really good one.
Absolutely. Just like what Robin was saying too, if like these buildings, these venues are all going bankrupt, you don't want to be in a venue of bankruptcy. That's like a perfect example. If that energy had been building, probably didn't happen overnight. You don't want to get married on it.
Yeah. And to what Elizabeth's talking about, a family member of mine was supposed to get married and found out they are getting married in September, and found out today that the venue that they booked a year ago just went bankrupt, and they no longer obviously have a place to get married. Plus, at the moment, they seem to be out of a lot of money. And I loved Elizabeth coming in and saying they wouldn't want to get married there. It's a good thing that it happened now.
Exactly. And so if the venue is holding an imprint of bankruptcy, if that clears, and if the space wants to become another venue or become something else, it can thrive as something else. But that energy imprint of bankruptcy needs to be completely moved out, reassess of what that space can be. And it might actually come back as more vibrant and better. It could be bought out by someone else and they make some tweaks and it becomes a different venue. But when they go to reassess what that space really wants, it's looking at it contractually of what does the structure and the land and the people and what is the most benevolent outcome. And that's the ethics of any clearing work. Like I was saying, you don't go into a graveyard and just bulldoze it to make it a playground. You have to see what all those elements want, the land, the spirits, and the people involved, to keep these cohesive spaces so that we do feel safe being on the physical plane. And we do have access to sacred spaces without trampling all all over them.
Well, I was going to say, for those listening, I'm sure you can relate to what you just said in the sense of, how, I don't know, in my town, there's one or two spots that come to mind where there's always a new restaurant. Whatever restaurant cannot stay open. And we always remark about what is the deal. It's so strange. It's a huge space. You would think there's enough people looking for restaurants, and yet it can't stay open. And honestly, to your point, it needs to be cleared. Someone needs to clear this spot because obviously there's been bankruptcy there. There's been those kinds of issues. And so it needs fresh energy.
And maybe the consideration is it doesn't want to be a restaurant anymore. Maybe it wants to be something else altogether. Need to be looked at for the most benevolent outcome.
And I think I bring it up because I would think most people listening have an idea of what I mean. In your city or your town, we all have one of those.
I think there's a whole Seinfeld about one, to be honest.
Yeah, you're so right. And like, if you really dug a little deeper, it's something else that you can't see.
It's energetic. And the other thing too is, let's say that it was a really successful restaurant 50 years ago, and the person who owned it, that was their life, and they passed away. They might still be holding so strongly that they're like, this is mine and I don't want anyone else to succeed. There's other things to look at spiritually. If there's energy that has a hold on it, that could also be why another restaurant can't succeed there, because someone else still has a psychic hold.
Is it them and their real spirit, or is it the belief energy that they've left behind that's still there?
It can be both. So it can be like the entity of the spirit itself is still, I'm not leaving this behind, but it can also be their spirit did cross on, but that part of them, that pattern was either so strong or they never fully healed it. So it's like they moved out completely, but left a couple patterns as like their luggage bag behind, and it's still in the space and not fully been cleared yet.
So Elizabeth, can you go into spaces like that and know? Can you see?
Yeah. So it's just asking, like I was saying, for me, like when I'm doing a space clearing, I'll sense the energy of the space in general. And then I'll ask, I'm talking to a friend, what do you need to be most supported? And then I'll ask the spirits, what do you need to be most supported? And I'll try to get everyone in a courtroom where we're going to negotiate how it can be cohesive and they can all work together. And sometimes they don't want to. And that's the house that takes months and months to sell, or that's the restaurant that overturns. Sometimes the karma is the overturning, and eventually it can clear. Some things just take a lot of time, but sometimes that is the karma of a place. I would never say, oh, I'll volunteer to clear the Bermuda Triangle. It is what it is. Like, I am not like, some things just are what they are. And yeah, it's holding the contract of what it is. And even though we know we're learning how to manipulate energy, there's ethics in this work. So you can only clear something to the amount that it's ready and willing to be cleared. And so like the Bermuda Triangle, maybe people have tried to manipulate it, or they've maybe gone in and say, I have the most energetic protection. I know what I'm doing. It has its own contract. It has its own karma. It's going to shift to what it wants to be at any given time. And if we could all shift everything to be what we want it all to be all the time, this world would look very different.
That's so true.
Like, you can't shift, even though you energetically are there to help others too. You can't shift what they're not willing to shift either.
Exactly. And there are just certain things that's like, we have to, and same thing with Everest, right? Mount Everest has its own contract with these climbers, whether people make it to the top, whether it's meant to be climbed. I think we go in and not necessarily try to shift the land, but I think people shift themselves in their courage to say, can I make it to the top? But I'm not clearing Everest. It is what it is.
These conversations are just soul fulfilling. And they really do help me personally, live in this body at this time and really make the most of it.
I was just going to say, when you're present, you have more joy. And so when we're scattered and everywhere else, whether it's trauma or just dissociation or being so much in the dream state, from time to time, it's still so important to pull it all back in, because the joy is the now.
It is.
I love the fact that you've explained to us that we all have the power to do that work, like to do the time traveling, to go into whatever portal and take whatever we need to learn and bring it back to our present.
And I'll say too, those spaces are important too, because our analytical mind is so powerful that in the daytime, we can't necessarily access our souls on that level. But if we're daydreaming or in a meditative state or just dreaming, stuff can come to us that we didn't necessarily think that we could access, or we get the answers then because we're in a place of surrender. And so that is the ability to heal, to say, okay, now I have this new information. What can I learn from? What can I let go of. And when we travel out and we bring information back in and we're just holding what's present, everything else we don't want drops off. And then new pathways form, new portals form, because we're not lugging around all this stuff. There's a lightness in that joy because we're receiving the information that we need by just letting go. And life becomes more fun and not as challenging, which is the goal.
That is the goal.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for illuminating so much of this for everyone listening, and including Karen and I.
Well, I had the best time. I wouldn't know else who I could talk to about portals. And I really love that. And it's with all these listeners too. It's like, there's so much magic. And when we can really just align that we are no separate from that, magic isn't something we call in and work with. It's something that we activate and alchemize within ourselves. It's just the sky's the limit. And it's like, we want to heal and we want to travel places. I guess the biggest lesson is pack light. And
yes, pack light and
wear your badge.
Yes, wear your badge. Exactly. Here's to many more of these conversations. And we're going to follow up on some of the things that came up today that we didn't even get to.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We highly recommend working with Elizabeth. You can find out more about her offerings at Elizabeth Furest. That's Furest. So ElizabethFurest.com. You can also follow her on Instagram at Solitary Connection, and we'll have all the links in our show notes. Thank you.
Thank you.